Psalms 26, 40, 58, 61, 62, and 64. Our understanding of the spiritual world will always be a matter of debate. I think it'll even more so be a matter of conjecture, because after all, we're humans and we don't see the spiritual world. We do have the benefit of the Bible and the benefit of watching the biblical story unfold in front of us. I have talked about the spirit world quite a bit. I think it's often overlooked in our Christian teaching. I think it does add some important elements to understanding the story, even the simple question of how does a person get righteous, and that by being loyal to the correct Elohim. I think those kind of answers can be simple once we start putting the story of the spiritual world, as it were, on paper to see and really to look at. So that's why I've done as much discussion about that world as I have. I do think they come into play even in the text quite a bit, and including today. Let's take a moment and see how the story of spirits is developed even further in our reading today. The psalmist, and again the audience, what would they have known at the time of this writing? Let's again just remind ourselves we have one creator, Elohim, one sustainer, one ruler. We've noticed he's been called, besides his name, Yahweh, he's called Elyon, the High One, the High God. They thought of, as it were, high and kind of high, or that idea of the higher you are, the more powerful. Gods were often thought of to live on the mountains, and that's where they get that term. These numerous gods, we don't know how many of them, seem to have been assigned rule or authority over the nations. In turn, these people groups, or the Goyim, have responded in worship, and covenants have been formed apparently between humans and their gods, much like the covenant between the Israelite and his God. Israel, of course, is told very clearly, coming out of Egypt, that these gods in Canaan would be a snare to them. Deuteronomy 7, Exodus 23, Judges 2. That at least tells us about the gods of Canaan and what God thought of them when it came to how they would relate to the Israelite. All right, let's talk about this word here, because it has been often a part of theological discussion. Are these gods fallen? Well, we just don't know. There is no Bible for the idea of a fall, a point in time at which the gods fell, or a percentage of them fell into sin or rebelled. We suspect there was, but again, there just isn't anything said for sure. I have resisted, therefore, in our storytelling here of the Bible, as we've followed it through, to ever use the word fallen, because again, the Bible simply does not use that term. Well, how about the word evil? Can we call these gods evil? Well, certainly when we hear of them being a snare, we suspect that they are, that their effect upon the human race is evil, and so forth. We have to add in, though, of course, and we'll see this later, well, we saw it in Genesis 3. We had a cherub who stood at the entrance of the Garden of Eden, and he guarded the way to the tree of life. He was a Elohim who seems to be on God's side, a loyal Elohim. We have gods surrounding the throne of Yahweh in in Daniel 7, and we'll get to that. Most specifically, we have two gods mentioned by name in the book of Daniel: Gabriel, Michael, the last two letters, El, again, shortened form of Elohim. Gabriel and Michael are gods. They're never called angels, and they seem to be loyal. And so, are they all evil? No. Are some of them evil? Probably. Again, but it just, conjecture really rules our understanding of how to categorize this world. We simply have to go with what we're told, and frankly, we're often left with a lot of questions as to what to do. So, I would even say it this way, and frankly, this is the theory I've been test driving as we've talked all these months together, and I've been using this idea as we go because I just think it makes sense. What if these beings are under the same temptation or same responsibility that you and I are, and that is to worship Yahweh? Listen to these two verses. Deuteronomy 32:43 in the Septuagint, or the Greek version, it reads, "Let all the gods worship him." Psalm 97:7, very simple, "Worship him, all you gods," all you Elohim. So why would the psalmist tell these gods to worship Yahweh if they couldn't, if they were inescapably evil, or if they had fallen? So I again sense that there is some kind of possibility, at least in the text, that these gods are still, like you and I, under the obligation to turn their worship toward Yahweh. One more verse that I'll mention today, and it comes from today's reading. It's in Psalm 58, and I'm going to read from the Jewish version again because I find it to be more accurate. Psalm 58:1, "O mighty ones," and the word there is Elim. "O mighty ones," that's a shortened form of Elohim. So he's talking to Elohim here, the psalmist is. So he says, "O mighty ones, do you really decree what is just? Do you judge mankind with equity?" And the word for mankind there is sons of men, man-class beings. So he's saying, "O divine class beings, are you judging the man-class beings properly?" And by judging, we don't mean deciding as much as administering justice. Are you treating them properly? And then listen to verse 3. "The wicked," that's these guys, "are defiant from birth. The liars go astray from the womb." What he seems to be saying is that he looks at the wickedness of the humans. From their birth, they're wicked, and he gives, shall we say, credit to the spirits that are administering justice over these people. I bring that up because there will be other passages, especially Psalm 82, which we'll get to farther down the road, where the psalmist is very clear in his belief, holding these gods to some degree responsible for the wickedness of the humans that they rule over. Well, we'll have to talk about that as we go, but just add this to our story, that when the writer looks across the boundary into another land and sees rampant wickedness, it's not just because these people are free to be wicked, and they are. And this will, again, be part of our story that we'll notice as we go. The writer is going to credit the gods they worship for much of their evil, which in one sense is why the gods themselves will be judged. And we'll see that later.